in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What a pity. Tomorrow never certain. What was behind the curtain? The face of evil lurking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, the tide up or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
Welcome, 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 ladies and gentlemen. Can I be heard, or is that the wrong version of myself over there?
You can the wrong version of yourself over there. That's funny.
No, you can't. This
I can hear you. I can hear you. Yeah, okay, there we go. There we go. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you for sure. Loud and clear. Shout out to Snuggles, Redfield Finance, and everybody in the building. Welcome to another episode. Getting this done. How's it going, Dr. Thunder?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing, man? You're still in Africa?
I am still in Africa, indeed.
What part exactly?
I'm in Ghana, Accra, the city of Accra, Ghana. Yes, that's West Africa. That's 2 countries down from Nigeria. You got Ghana, and then Togo, and then you got Nigeria, and then actually got Benin, the Republic of Benin, right there. That's where the Dahomey Kingdom is from. But anyways, that's shout out to the Woman King, the homies in the house.
The homies.
Well, today we're going to be talking about
are the homies Crips or Bloods?
Are the homies Crips or Bloods? I don't know, man. I don't know. It's like
it's pre-blood.
It's pre-blood. It's pre-blood. In Chicago, in the Chicago prison system, they divide them into folks or people. And it's like that's kind of funny. Like but you know, gangs have been kind of like disaggregated a lot. You don't have like the big blocks of gangs like Crips and Bloods. You know how it kind of started in the United States. Now it's more what they call sets and stuff like that. So it gets all confusing in the jail system. So there are a bunch of gangs that identify as folks, and then a bunch of gangs identify as people. So I don't know how they chose who folks are and who peoples are, but that's how they roll. That's how they're rolling over there in Chicago. But yeah, I don't know why I know that. I do know why I know that. I watch a lot of prison content on YouTube. It's pretty interesting. Anyways, we're talking about how to keep your kids out of, identifying as folks or people. We're talking about raising successful children. And I have a nice simp family in the in the background. I don't know why I call them simp family. That's what comes to mind when I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little jaded with happy looking people smiling and stuff like that. What's wrong with me, Dr. Thunder?
I don't know, man.
I was like, he's a simp. Anyways, we're going to be reviewing a video from Patrick Bet-David. Go ahead and click that like button. Share the stream. Very important, right? And if you've not subscribed before, subscribe and hit the notification bell and all that good stuff. Shout out to Chaos Rain. So we're going to get right into this. Okay, this is our second set of videos that we're kind of reviewing a video by my man Patrick Bet-David over here, Valuetainment. I like his content. It's always he always seems he seems equally engaged in everything. He seems like he's a great salesman. Is another way to put it. It's just he convinces you that he really cares about everything that he's talking about. Even though I'm sure you can't be equally so passionate about everything, but that's where the skill comes in. And speaking of passion, in communication, without seeming sleazy, I think he hits a good kind of note on it. You know what I mean?
Without sounding like Hafiz.
Oh wow! Is that what they're called?
Yeah,
I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, I heard that on somebody's. I was watching Donovan Sharp. That's what it was. Shout out to Donovan. I was watching Donovan. He was reviewing that Valuetainment, the Valuetainment, the Money Channel, the interview, the much fabled CGA versus Hafiz, and he called him Hafiz. Donovan didn't, but somebody in the super chat called him Hafiz. So I think that's it. I think he's Hafiz now.
Hafiz. Oh man. Yeah.
That's too bad, man. It's a bad look, man. It's a bad look.
And you pointed out that he kind of was raised with his father in the house. But anyways, that it's one of those things that spaces like this. I mean, you forget that. Oh yes, you can be raised in your father in the house, and you still people are what they. Yeah, like it's not. Imagine if he wasn't.
Check it out. Check it out. Donovan was saying that he thinks that his pastor and his wife are leading him astray. That's what Donovan said.
Yeah, I wouldn't be kind of surprised.
Yeah, and I'm kind of like, you know what, Donovan? I think you might be right on that.
Yeah, because the way his approach to, he seems like a very much a pastor kind of guy. He says it right, but a lot of people will say stuff like that, but not necessarily be. And you know what I mean by a pastor type of guy, where it's like, oh yeah, my pastor, and he stands there with his pastor and his wife, and his pastor tells him, and he's like, oh yes, my pastor's like, that kind of shit. He seems like that kind of dude, and he just got married, and his wife is watching the show, and he better represent for the good of all. Now, the thing about God, okay, which by the way, we'll get into the topic. People, okay, but the thing that he was trying to do when he was like saying, he was trying to channel his inner Jordan Peterson, and Hafiz is no Jordan Peterson, right? What he was trying to do when he was telling Coach that, what you say has to be in line with the truth, he was trying to channel, and he was, rather than explain or articulate himself, he was just dropping the name Jordan Peterson, which is not an argument, right? But do you know what he was trying to say there? Because, I know what he was trying to say, right? Which is the whole kind of Petersonian things have to be in alignment type of stuff. And
so here was the yes, that is what he was doing. Mm-hmm. That is what he was doing. But here's the big problem. Jordan still has not said specifically that he's a Christian.
Yeah.
He steps back from from actually saying that, and to the point where there's a lot of and I was going back and forth between somebody with somebody on, I don't know, one of my videos or something, and they were talking about how they thought that when he finally lets go of all that intellectual stuff and receives Christ and all this kind of stuff, then he was all into that kind of stuff. And I was just thinking to myself, Jordan Peterson is so much deeper than you. Who are you talking about? Bruh. You don't even know what you're talking about. But anyhow, Hafiz, uh, unfortunately, he missed the detail where Jordan is not really necessarily bolstering your points. What it is that he's saying is far more profound and nuanced
Yeah.
than what it is that you're trying to get it to mean conveniently for your, you know,
Yeah.
for your argument. So I don't know that that was what you
Yeah.
do, Feezy.
Yeah, it was the kind of thing where you have to have taken several steps. I mean, let's say within that conversation. Within that conversation, you'll have to have taken the audience, the whole room, and the mood, and certain steps in terms of both concentration and everything. You'll have to take in certain steps there before you start talking about things aligning with being right and whatever, right,
Oh,
and
goodness
truth
gracious.
and such. Like but he just kind of like, oh yeah, it's gotta, it's gotta be God, and it's just like, no, 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 you just, the God word again, right? Is you gotta know how to carefully use it, and yeah,
Look,
he was not subtle
I've
enough to
seen,
make the point he was trying to make.
yeah, I've seen now a number of uh reaction videos. I saw MTR's, and basically they just basically played the live stream and provided some commentary, right? So I saw MTR's, O'Shea Duke Jackson did one. He didn't do the whole video, but he did a good chunk of it. I saw, of course, CGA did a replay. Let's see, who else did I see? Donovan Sharp. And there's a bunch of others that did it that I didn't really get into it. I know
Mhm.
Mumia Obsidian Ali did one. I saw that Mr. Palmer was doing one. I haven't seen Mr. Palmer's yet. But a number of folks, I mean, it seems to be like a captivating discussion. It's very interesting because it's like a perfect, and simultaneously you have the same sort of stoicism versus sort of emotionalism on the other side. You have the same thing between Chantel and um
Courtney.
and Courtney Michelle, right? So I just think it is very, it's like it's almost poetic, to have two, and these are all very prominent YouTubers, huge
Mhm.
subscriber bases. So of course it's going to have a sort of ripple effect, and a lot of folks will be talking about it I think are going to be talking about it for a while. So pretty
Mhm.
pretty interesting stuff.
You see, it's interesting that you juxtapose stoicism with emotionalism, because I think that what it could have been at best and what Hafiz was trying to do, and by the way, it's not like he could have ever done it, right? Like, he could not have done it, would have been stoicism versus existentialism, right? Which, Jordan Peterson being more the existentialist side of things. But existentialism is a very difficult thing to kind of articulate, as you know. And that's how it was. So he completely screwed the pooch there, because I mean the best that he could have done was, the type of thing about, well, is the kind of truth that fosters the good for you, both past, present, and future, and the good for your family, and the good for your community, and the good for the whole society, and what is what we're saying, blah blah blah. But then Jordan will be the first to tell you that the truth of that CGA is saying is very important, right? That you cannot paper over that truth based on some kind of fluffy whatever that you're trying to say. And he will be the first to be like, that must be integrated 100%, right, into the deal. And it's not some kind of, let's hide it away in order for this kind of weird kind of balance that he was saying. Oh, where's the balance? Where's the balance? What do you mean? What balance? Where? How? It was not, shall we say, quantitative or mathematical or particular at all about what he means by balance. Balance just meant, stop talking, coach. We don't want to hear that stuff anymore. It's too negative. It's hurting my feelings. It's making my wife mad, or whatever the hell it is, right? So he's out there trying to be an existentialist, and he's not qualified at all. Barely anyone is qualified to do that kind of stuff. Okay. Anyways, let's get into the video. Shout out to Patrick Bet David. He's going to be talking about a few points regarding raising successful children. And the first thing that comes to mind, and I really haven't watched this yet, I'm like, okay, well, it's got to be about instilling or at least not hindering competence and self-regulation, maybe competition and things of that nature, right? So how you instill that or at least not hinder it. And perhaps the not hindering aspect is more important. I don't know what you think. What do you feel? What do you think about that sentiment that I have, which is this whole idea of you're going to put something in there, I think perhaps it's more important to not be blocking things. It's almost like, the cell is going to multiply, it's going to grow, things are going to happen. A lot of this stuff is not in your control. You got to not be throwing dirt and stuff in there, as opposed to you thinking that you're going to engineer something positively. Am I making any sense?
Somewhat. I'm not. Maybe I don't understand. So what are we? Say maybe just rephrase.
Yeah, I'm just saying that this is just a sentiment, right? That when somebody says how to raise successful children, I'm leaning towards, well, it's not about what you instill in them, right? And then maybe it's just my particular bias as a human being, as an individual, just kind of like, it's more about not hindering certain things. So it's like, okay, not hindering their development of competence, self-regulation and stuff like that, as opposed to what you can actively, positively instill in a kind of like an engineering type of way. It's more what you don't do to screw things up, what you don't do to put roadblocks in front of their way. Yeah,
I agree with that. There may be certain exceptions to that. I think you see if if the parent has a particular skill, and the kid shows capability in that skill, and if they get them started early and coach them up, as it were, that's something more than just not screwing them up. That's actually providing very close sort of training in whatever that discipline is, and that can end up giving them a great advantage. Other than that, it seems to me that basically just don't screw it up and try to, you want them to be safe, you want them to go to the best school they can go to, stay away from hooligans, all of that kind of stuff. And don't keep your daughter off the pole and your son out of prison, and you're doing pretty good.
Indeed.
Can you imagine taking a test and not getting the results for 40 years? How tough is that? I mean, in high school, in college, you go take a test, the next thing you find out if you failed or passed, right? But parenting is the only test you take that you will not find out whether you did good or not for 40 years. Today, I was asked to share with you how I'm raising my kids. Whether this stuff's going to work or not, I'm not going to know for 40 years, but I'm going to share with you some of the methods I'm deciding to raise my kids, hoping they're going to be successful. All right, so let's get right into it. Look, parenting is like public speaking. A lot of people in the world of sales, they're very good at from stage. Oh, I'm a very good public speaker, let's just say, right? And then some are good in groups of 3 to 5 or 10, like a smaller group talking to people, right? But the best leaders I know, they're the best at one-on-one. And parenting is all one-on-one, meaning you can sit there with your 3 kids and give them a pep talk collectively together, right? You can sit there and give them a spiel or preach something at them, right? But there's nothing more powerful to me in parenting than one-on-one. The best conversations I've ever had with my dad, nobody else was around. It was just he and I. The best conversation I'm willing to bet that you have with your mom or your dad were probably just you and them. When it comes down to raising kids, I read a book a long time ago saying, thank God it's Monday. meaning I can't wait to get away from my family. The author, who's a therapist, said one of the best ways to save your marriage and parenting is to spend one-on-one time communicating with your individual kids and your spouse. I've taken the philosophy of talking to my kids one-on-one to see what's on their mind and address whatever issue they have. And if it's got to be something where you got to discipline them, if the level of discipline is higher, where you got to be really serious conversation with them, pull them aside to have that conversation with them one-on-one. They will appreciate it. At least I did.
Now, this one resonates with me, almost for obvious reasons, and I think that it probably will resonate with men in general because it's women. I tend to be more on the, especially on the disciplining thing where he just mentioned, right? Where you're scolding this child in front of everybody, or you're doing a family meeting in order to talk about blah blah blah, this kind of groupishness and whatnot. But if I look back he mentioned the profound conversations that you've had and the meaningful things you've had. If I look back in my childhood and the memories that I have that were either meaningful or profound or anything at all, like in other words, most of my memories actually were all on the one-to-one basis, like me and one of my sisters, me and my mother, like me. It was never like that time when we all were kumbayaing together or some ish like that. Granted, this is hugely about my personality, right? But the one-on-one thing, it resonates with me a lot also in terms of just being able to get through to somebody, especially, if you are kind of, doing this type of, I don't know. What do you think about this one-on-one type stuff? I haven't quite seen it emphasized before. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. When he was talking, I was just reflecting back on all the time with my dad. All the conversations, all the phone conversations, all of the time, just one-on-one, him, teaching me how to do something. And it could be something pretty deep, or it could be just something where he's showing me something. Years ago, I wrote a post on Facebook, and that post basically was reminiscing on riding with my dad on a motorcycle. So the way that you know what? Let me do this. Let me do this. Let me find that post. Why don't you keep rolling? I'm going to find that post. I'm going to read it because I think it's appropriate.
All right. Yeah. While you find that post, something else I was going to mention about this one-on-one thing, because he started off by talking about the skill of communication, the skill of selling, presenting, influencing, persuading. And he kind of talked about the difference between one-on-one, groups of 3 to 5, and then large groups. Yep. I find I'm good in 2 of those locations, and I'm bad in the middle. I'm good one-on-one because I can listen. Not only can I listen, I think I can make you really feel like I'm listening to you, right? I don't have an issue with that. I can go deep or shallow depending on where you're trying to go, right? And so on. And then on the other end, I'm great at group presentations where there is a clear, you can say you have a captive audience or something like that, or there's a clear leader. People are there to listen to you. You have a stage, and it's a pure performance. So boom, it's performance mode. I switch it on, bam. Groups of 3 to 5, that's the one that's kind of challenging for me, where it's like there's a little bit of vying for attention. There's a little bit of, the conversation is not as directed. The conversation is not as focused, I guess, because I guess on both extremes, one-on-one and also in a group, on a large group, it's focused, right? The large group, you're speaking, you're giving the direction. One-on-one, it's one person. Groups of 3 to 5 people, things just kind of get diluted and weird. and relatively stupid and stuff like that. That is the area in which I tend to struggle with, and that is the area where like a family, right? A family group of 3 to 5 and stuff like that. But what he said about the punishment thing, I just want to kind of reiterate that 100%. You don't want to be doing this whole punishment or chastising somebody in a group of people, and also this idea that if I spend time with you as an individual, and I spend time with my wife as an individual, I spend time with a kid as an individual, and all these types of things, that is not as valuable somehow as quote unquote family time. Now I see what they mean by the family time, the whole group together. 100%. I'm not going to push back on that, but I don't think that it's actually as quality time, because you just mentioned your memories and also my memories, right? And this, we got to be doing things together, I think it serves the interest of that particular person whom is more groupish, whom is more of an extroverted feeler, let's say.
Yeah, and people use this terminology all the time. Making memories. Let's make memories.
Oh my God!
And
I can make memories teaching the kid how to fry an egg. That's so much better than. I know. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. So I think my issue with it is the memory that is made is not based on someone external imposing the memory, not someone outside saying this will be your memory. This is something valuable to document. This is going to be the memory. It's never that. It's the experience of the person. It's the and often is the case that you don't even know that that's the memory that you're going to carry, that's going to be the thing that stands out. You don't even know that. And it's just something, and then something rushes back and you're like, oh, snap.
Why is that so obvious to you, Dr. Thunder? Right? Why is it seem like it's such common sense, and why do people keep going around still having difficulties saying that? One of the obvious answers, again, goes to personality thing. But is it all personality? Why is it so obvious to you that, hey, this memory thing, number one, you don't get to choose what they're going to remember, and number two, why is some kind of a vacation where we all stood in the beach together and watched, why do you think that that's quote unquote a memory as opposed to any other thing else that may have been done? Why is it so obvious to you?
Well, I think it's obvious to me because I think introverted people are more likely to notice that maybe than extroverted people, and maybe part of that is because the introvert is sort of spending more time alone in their thoughts, and maybe there's a little bit maybe they're a little bit less influenced by the crowd. I do recognize that I see this let's make memories thing that seems to be even more of a common sort of expression these days, especially with all the social media and stuff, because I think people honestly equate memories with pictures, and videos and stuff. And it's a little almost frustrating to me when you're trying to actually enjoy the moment and be in the moment, but you're expected to take a lot of pictures and stuff, because it in a matter of speaking, it sort of takes away from being able to actually truly be in the moment. And then the pictures that you take, are they actually capturing what happened, or are you making people pose? And is that really capturing the memory, or is that you just made up something that actually didn't really exist? You know, and yeah, the staged stuff is a little hard for me to I don't know.
Shout out to Bob with the $2 super chat. Says, Ike, is your parenting laissez-faire type? Not really. It's just more of a more subtle with a great emphasis on that negative aspect which I mentioned. Great emphasis on understanding that you gotta let people make their own mistakes. You got to let people observe you, right? Like I think just having somebody being physically, let's say you have a son, right? And it's perhaps more important for this son aspect where if you allow, that is, right, your son to be around you, especially when you're doing, let's say, important things, right? That goes deep into their psyche. Like it's like a slow initiation into manhood in the sense of he trusts me enough to have me around. Forget, having to talk to him and all that kind of stuff. Like I'm around him when he's doing X, Y, and Z, and I can observe him, that is, and all those types of things. So it's not laissez-faire, but it's as Dr. Thunder said, perhaps given the kind of a recognition of internal workings of things that introverts tend to be focused on, is the recognition of that. So it's like I recognize all the subtle things that go into it, as opposed to people always trying to be actively pushing something somewhere. It's like, no, I just kind of know that, hey, if there's a grown adult and he's your father and he is actually allowing you be in the car with him, driving down somewhere, you guys, it comes out, maybe he's actually working and you're just sitting there in the corner, right? And you're in the same room with him. That's a profound thing for the development of that child, as opposed to thinking that, oh no, you got to be turned to him and playing his games all the time. Like you bringing him into your world, trust him in enough, like, okay, I'm going to be doing this adult stuff, and this is how you carry yourself in the adult environment. I think that's huge. Just to give an example of what I'm saying there. Did you find your post, Dr. Thunder?
Almost. I was like, man, I guess I do post a lot. There's a lot of stuff. I'm looking back through my Facebook. I'm like, man, this is an incredible amount of stuff.
No problem. Keep searching there. Yeah. Let's see if we can get into this competition, balancing competition with teamwork. But yeah, Bob, it's not necessarily laissez-faire. It would look perhaps like laissez-faire from the external, but it's all based on what I said, and then B, knowing that this might sound a little bit woo, but I think that your particular state, your subjective state, is easily observed by people, right? Especially, let's say, your kids. So forget that kind of stuff about like your behavior, what you do, your work ethic and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, sure, that's all like your behavior. But how do you manage yourself? Speaking of, let's say, stoicism, for example, right? How do you manage what kind of a subjective state are you in? Are you calm? Are you balanced? Are you happy, dare I say? And again, not this external happy nonsense, okay? But are you satisfied with life? Are you giving up satisfied vibes? Are you at peace? That's huge in terms of influencing the child versus you trying to, do whatever, take into 10,000 different classes and activities and thinking, oh yeah, this is going to give him psychological balance, but you're a freaking wreck. You're a mess, and you're coming home tonight, every night drinking yourself to sleep. And you're like, that kind of crap I find to be. And then again, for me, it's all kind of it's not something I sit thinking about a lot. It's just kind of obvious, as we just kind of mentioned earlier. It's just obvious. Like, of course, you got to be of course, your state matters. It's not about the external crap you're doing. External crap matters too. But anyways, let us continue here. Number 2, balancing competition with teamwork. I wonder what this is about.
balancing between competition and teamwork. And let me explain to you what I mean by this. A lot of people will say, parents will say, it is not good to raise your kids competitive. That's their philosophy. It's not mine. So I'll give you an example of what happened to us just last Sunday. So every Sunday we bike with me and my kids, and it's between 8 to 12 miles we'll bike, right? Well, my 9-year-old and my 7-year-old will get on the bike and boom, we'll go out there and we'll bike. Typically, I'll say, hey, Dad, if I win this first patch, I want to get Slurpee when I come back. I want to be able to play 30 minutes more video games. I want to be able to do X, Y, Z. So great, no problem. So they'll compete against each other because it's friendly competition. They're around the same age. One of them is stronger, obviously, but it's still healthy competition. But on the way back, I said, here's what we're going to be doing today. He says, what's that? I said, today, I want to see both of you work together as a team to see if both of you together can beat me by working as a team and motivating each other. See if you can beat me. So I'm now on the bike, pulling my daughter, and she's in the back, and we're going, and they're in front of me. I'm not gonna lie to you. I showed up, and I'm sweating so bad. My dad's like, "What happened to you?" I am drenched because they were willing to work collectively together to have a common enemy, which was who? Let's beat Daddy. And they did that day, by the way. I'm proud of them. If you see this one day, you were 7 and 9 years old when you beat Daddy. But there's a balance of both. I don't mind, hey, let's see who's going to be able to do this lap faster. Okay, great. Now let's see how you guys can do it together. So competition and teamwork. If I have to choose between the two, which one a little bit more than the other, I'm probably going to be 51% teamwork, 49% competition, but I'm driving both. Next one is something.
First things that come to mind there is standards, because again, it's not really about so high standards drive recognition of, winners and losers, right? As opposed to everyone gets a trophy, and then motivation and hierarchy and all that kinds of stuff being taught. So, because when you say competition, generally speaking, one thinks of a group activity, right? And yeah, sure, that's important. Group activity is important in and of itself. Or you can be having group activity where there's no competition involved, or you can be having seemingly competitive group activity where there is no recognition of winners or losers, where you're doing the whole everyone gets a trophy thing. So if we want to abstract from the group activity itself and all that kind of stuff, what exactly is being said here by the competition stuff is having high standards, having drive, understanding, hey, you got to push, and you got to be motivated. And there's a hierarchy here. There's a winner, there's a loser, and then obviously the whole coming together to work. What do you think about the whole competition and teamwork thing you just went through?
Yeah. So yeah, both are important. This whole anti-competition society, or I don't know, I guess it is society at this point, where that characterizes competition as being essentially negative. Matter of fact, when you hear the term competition, I think the general sentiment is there's like a negative connotation. That whole thing, that's hogwash. Competition is important, and one of the things that sports can teach you is the value of measuring yourself, not just you against you, which of course is the most critically important thing that you'll do, is making sure that you are covering ground and you are achieving your own goals. Okay. But it's also seeing how you measure up against other people. And you need to know that. I would argue that one of the reasons why, even in this sort of dating dynamic that we find these days, one of the reasons why people are so women often seem to be so sort of out of touch with reality, and they're what it is that they say they want, that their standards, the things that their list of X, Y, and Z, in large part is because they have not they've not been in a competitive environment. They've not had to sort of see how they line up against other folks, other people. And when you try to set it up in a way so that they would have to be actually compared to other folks, they don't like it, or it's distasteful. There's something wrong.
Yeah, and obviously it's because of the potential of losing, right? I'm sure if competition always led to winning, they'll all be for it, right? So
Right.
it's the inexperience with losing, inexperience with really struggling and struggling to win, or then also losing as well, losing gracefully. I think that's important. We were on Kosher Clinicians. Was it on Kosher Clinicians channel that I mentioned the? No. It was on your channel when we were talking about the value of marriage, and I talked about the blues spirit. That just came to mind right now, and that is a spirit of losing gracefully.
Yeah.
And that is super important for me in terms of like if you're gonna be with a woman, you better have that thing in her. I don't need to go further with extolling the benefits of it, if you will. But something else that came to mind with this. Go ahead, and now.
Yeah. Well, so one thing I was thinking about is, oh man, it just caused me to reload everything. Man, I got to start over looking again. But one of the issues, I totally lost my train of thought now. Go ahead, and I'll probably rethink of it.
Okay, so when it comes to competition, you mentioned competition being important and all that kind of stuff, and you mentioned sports. It just kind of struck me. Oh yeah, you can also learn the teamwork from that as well. So I guess what he just said here is that, oh, sports is a very good place that fosters these things that he is talking about, right? And it may not be, and if you're, I mean, there's always some kind of sport or some kind of a competitive activity that any kind of kid can participate in, even if they're not, a runner or whatever it may be, and they're not great at soccer, they're not great at this, something they can do something, right, in that regard. But something else that came to mind is, again, this is perhaps it's important for boys, both for boys and girls, but there's a need to wean kids from that goalpost shifting tendencies that they have as kids. All kids have that, which, by the way, is why that this whole kind of when women do that, they're just acting like children, right? And the tendency to shift goalposts. You were talking earlier about your son, changing the rules of a game in the middle of the game, right? and that is something that we've all experienced it, and we've all kind of known that. Shout out to the chat if you guys know what we mean, where you're playing something with a kid, or a kid comes to you. Typically they come to you with some kind of a game. It's kind of their idea of the game, what the game is. And then you start playing it, and then you're like, oh no, but you can't do that. You have to do this. And typically it's when whatever you're doing leads them to lose, then they start shifting stuff. So you gotta actively wean them of that, because it's an important part to them being accepted by larger society, especially by the adult world. So there's a stage where it's still cute, right? But after a particular stage, then the outside world is not going to take you seriously, and they're not going to tell you, right? That's the thing. It's the outside world is not going to tell the kid, so that's why the parent has to do it. The outside world is just gonna, I mean, whatever they're gonna shun. You get the idea. You'll be shunned. You will not be taken seriously. You will not be brought into. You're not going to get the benefits, if you will, if you keep on doing this type of stuff beyond when it's cute to adults. So you gotta know how to wean them from that. Hey, you can't be doing this anymore with people. You know, people, the rules are the rules, and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, you got to balance that also out with the big rat, little rat type of dynamic of allowing them to win sometimes in play, if you will. But then there's got to be this clear demarcation between when it's quote a play game versus a real game. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I totally agree. I remembered what I was thinking about. So part of the reason why competition is important, we'll say in the dating climate or in any sort of situation, is because you'll know naturally where you actually rank. And then therefore you can make a decision based on where you actually are for someone that is equally matched. If you don't have any way to sort of scrutinize, categorize you, then you could choose someone that is way out of your league, as it were, or you could choose somebody that's way below you. And then once you come to yourself and figure out that, hey, wait a minute, I'm actually better than this guy, then you're going to leave that guy. Right. So that's in a nutshell, that's a typical issue. It's one of the reasons why women that lose a lot of weight. So say maybe they got married and they were, you know, morbidly obese or something, and then they get themselves together, they lose down to what a healthy size actually would be for them. Now they think they can do better.
Mm-hmm.
So disproportionately, when folks lose a lot of weight, they will tend to not be happy with their current situation because they think that they can level up, right? So what I'm saying is what competition does is it shows you where you actually line up from the jump. It shows you where it is, so then you can make better decisions based on that. So that's the competition thing, and I think so. Shielding your kids from competition, or basically teaching them that, that competition is not it's not healthy, or blah blah blah, or any of that kind of stuff, is, I think you're putting them in a bad situation. Now, on the other hand, we were talking about the teamwork thing. That's also very important. And so, it's not competition. I wouldn't say it's competition over teamwork. I'd say it's both of them. And perhaps you can do some things where you're competing as a team. So if you have a big enough family, you could have, it's these two versus these two, or these four versus these four, or whatever it is. And that way you can sort of get a lot of that stuff together. I found the post.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was saying before was about how we, which memories are going to be impactful. You don't know what memories are going to be impactful until later. You don't know what stuff is going to really touch you and really make you feel a certain way, have a certain sense of nostalgia, and so here's the post. So I got back into the motorcycle club yesterday. This is back in June. This is June 1st, 2017. And I've owned motorcycles for almost all of my adult life. So since I was about 19, I started riding motorcycle myself. I grew up riding motorcycles with my dad. Okay. And so that's like one of those things that I just, I get, as they say, honestly. Okay. So here's the post. So I got back into the motorcycle club yesterday when I picked up a black 2008 Suzuki Boulevard C90T. And my first riding partner was none other than a car, motorcycle, and anything that's on wheels fanatic. Yep, it was my 3-year-old son. So this is back when he was 3, Moses. And yes, he rode on the back, and he's been on 3 motorcycle rides so far. Most of the time, he was telling me to go faster. This kid has no fear. The few years that I was without a motorcycle, I've had 3, including the Boulevard, made me feel very much as if a critical part of me was missing. And when I was once again atop of a snarling beast on the open road, I was only reminded of a small part of what I missed. It was when Moses joined me that so many memories with my dad on motorcycle rides rushed back into the front of my mind. Sometimes they were long trips, like the trips we took from my hometown to another location, trying to be a little bit cryptic, which is where I was born. And sometimes they were just a few miles to a soft serve ice cream place. My father is a real ice cream lover. I get that from him too. My father didn't grow up with what he was able to provide for his children. Our lives, his children, are what they are because he made a decision to create a better situation for his family. And because of that, I have more fond memories of my upbringing than he did, and more than anyone can expect to have. I hope that I'm able to provide the same kinds of memories for my son. Thanks, Dad, for not making excuses, working hard to provide for your family, being there, and willing to talk any time of day, being financially supportive, intellectually supportive, and an absolute sucker for anything family related. Thanks for supporting my music career and for passing on so many beautiful things, including the love of motorcycles and ice cream. On my first motorcycle ride with Moses, we drove around the block a few times and then headed to a Dairy Queen for dinner and ice cream, all made possible by my dad. May God grant you many years. So, but my point is that when we're talking about making memories and you're talking about the value of this one-on-one time, you have no idea of what the things that what it is that's going to stand out to you and when it's going to come back. And honestly, I knew that something was missing, but I honestly didn't realize what it was missing. It wasn't the motorcycle. It wasn't the motorcycle.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. That was very good. So, shout out to Adult Supervision here talking about parents being the competition. I just watched a video on a channel that talks about murders and such, where a woman killed both her daughters.
Oh.
You know, yeah, she killed both her daughters, and she, yeah, obviously there was some kind of mental health stuff going on. She was getting kind of depressed, and she was kind of acting unruly. Her family was kind of slightly falling apart, if you will. And the husband loved their daughters, and also their daughters had, one of the daughters was the daughters finished school, right? Which the mom didn't have the opportunity to. And one of the daughters is engaged, about to get married, and all this kind of good stuff. And the daughters really liked their mom, and they were like reading Facebook posts of this particular family, right, talking about all the praise that they give to the mom and such. But apparently that wasn't enough. Obviously, the mom was looking at the daughters as competition, and there was a big part of it which was just resentment, and ended up shooting both daughters in front of their dad in order to punish their dad or whatever was going through her mind there. But yes, the competition tends to happen a lot between between women and their daughters. Once their daughters start getting to a particular age, it happens. So that's not the kind of competition we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So Your point is 100% clear. You didn't remember. I'm sure you guys went on vacations or stuff like that, or you guys did your typical kind of let's make memories type stuff, right? Which tend to be more on a group level and all that kind of stuff. But that's not what came to mind, and that's not what is in my mind. And I would, I wonder if we did like a survey of what people find to be meaningful and profound childhood memories. Was it one-on-one, or was it this type of let's make memories with the group type moments? And I'm fine with whichever result. What irks me is that the people who are more group oriented just have this sense that they're correct. They just tend to think that because you're the bad guy, right off the get go. If you're not group oriented, then you're bad. You're suspicious. What's going on with you? Why are you over there by yourself? You're immoral. For a lot of people, groupishness equals morality. Very, very tied to it. It's like it's like, it's like a one-to-one relationship. The more group feeling you have, the more moral you have. Oh, he was a good person. Why? Well, he did all this groupish type stuff, right? So, anyways, that's the part that gets me. It's just it's just strange. But anyways, creating opportunities to debate. Something that I recall was Joe Kennedy, the Kennedy family patriarch, talked about doing this with his kids a lot. Let's see.
Something I do in our family a lot, and that is debate. I love debate. What I mean by debate is any topic that comes up. Patrick's reading the book, and I'll say, so do you think that was the right thing to do when they're doing this? I don't know if it's the right thing to do. Why do you think? I think this, I think that. Why not? What if they did this but that? Why would they do this? Well, because they did this. Is that a bad idea? Who said it's a bad idea? And we're constantly debating, and they'll be talking to each other. What do you think about it? What do you think about it? I think we should do this. Why do you think we should go to the movies? I think we need to go to the movies because of this. Why do you think I think we should play outside. Why should we play outside? Because if we play outside, we spend more time to get in the movies. It's quiet, and we're just sitting there together. And we're all quiet for like 5 seconds. Okay, then let's go play outside, right? But it's the muscle of debating because their brain is learning how to reason by constantly challenge each other's mind. And you'd be amazed at what age kids can debate. It's very, very early. And I think it's something that strengthens their mind to be able to help make better decisions as they age. Next one is.
The debate one kind of reminds me also of the competition, right? So obviously there's critical thinking, and you're going to acclimate yourself to respectful disagreement, self-regulation, and competition. But I think I want to maybe let's talk about this respectful disagreement and self-regulation, because being out here on YouTube, one thing that we notice is that people display their inability to regulate themselves a lot in conversations or debate, right? Which is a reflection of their inability to regulate themselves, right? Which, goes to your whole stoicism thing. So what do you think about his approach here of, asking for, kind of critically viewing everything, including whether or not we're going to play outside or go to dinner? And from there too, also, like if you're reading something like, oh, what are your thoughts about that? Do you think this is right? Do you think that's wrong? What do you think that fosters, and what do you think about this method?
Yeah. No, I like this idea. So this video I did earlier today, where I was sort of, and actually I did a couple days ago also, where I really focused on the sort of Chantel Simone versus Courtney Michelle sort of debate. But the one that I did earlier today, I talked about that, and I brought up something that I actually disagree with Chantel. And one of the things I disagree with is she will say, nobody has time to debate. I'm just sharing my perspective. You're sharing your perspective. And then she went into detail about how this is why, with religion, nobody's going to change. People already think what they think, and it's no, and there's not much, it's so nobody has time for that. Nobody has, So I would argue that those are actually the most meaningful debates in conversations, so long as both parties can remain stoic and it doesn't blow up into a sort of a personal the feeling of a personal assault, where you can keep the ideas outside of one's own personal feelings and just discuss the points, and I think so. I think that's of critical importance. I would like to. I wish there were more of those kinds of things, but I think that the term debate has become a pejorative. Again, it has a bad connotation, right? Whereas debate actually, I think, is one of the most important things to engage in, because it's how you sort of, as the Bible puts it, iron sharpens iron, right? It's how you measure up. It's how you compare thoughts and ideas. It's how you further clarify the nature of reality, is because you are measuring your ideas, your arguments against someone else. And then hopefully what happens out of the discussion is closer understanding, of, like, as I said, the nature of reality, of what is real, as opposed to what is subjective, right? So I think that that's actually of critical importance. Now, granted, I understand why Chantel was saying that, and I don't think that she's saying that she doesn't, she's not willing to have any sort of critical, to critically assess, arguments. That's not what she's really saying.
Ironically, what she's doing is a debating tactic. Go ahead.
Right, exactly. So, but on the face of it, there's a sense that I disagree with. I think very much it's very important to have these sort of discussions, and starting kids young, exercising those muscles, I think is a good idea. I think that's great. I think that can turn into one of those, as I've described myself as having an unfair advantage.
Mhm.
It can be an unfair advantage because a kid could be so far ahead of the other kids as far as their ability to sort of grapple with serious issues, and make decisions based on reason and not based on the crowd.
Interesting. A memory just came back to me. Speaking of, and it was sitting, and it's typically later at night. So shortwave radio, just, I grew up in Africa, right? And you have this shortwave radio stuff, like one of these channels was like Voice of America, right? And it was American propaganda, you would call it, against the communist bloc, let's say, kind of filling the third world, if you will, with their version of propaganda, because the idea was, the first world being the West, and the second world, which was like the communist area, kind of vying for the third world, right? So typically in the evenings, it will be my dad listening to VOA, Voice of America, and I would be in the corner of the room there somewhere, just also listening to it. I wasn't interacting directly with my dad, right? He was listening to Voice of America, and I was listening to Voice of America. That memory has always been with me, right? And it came into mind because we were talking about ideas and debating and all that kind of stuff. And again, we weren't debating stuff, but it was him listening to, and Voice of America is like a talk radio type stuff. So it's people talking, they're telling the news, there's ideas. It's like, think about it like NPR, if you will, right? And that, so there's 2 points being made here. Number one, on this kind of exposure to ideas and stuff like that. And then number two, the kinds of memories that stick with you, typically having nothing to do with, what you might think of these, Instagram moments, right? So yeah, I guess that's interesting that actually just came to me. It's like just sitting there listening to the radio while he was also listening to the radio, and we were not necessarily interacting. I mean, he knew I was there, and yeah, that was interesting. Let's continue. Teaching independence.
It's, teaching them independence rather than doing everything for them. Like a lot of times, a grandma or grandfather, a father or a mother, sometimes parents want to do everything for their kids. Oh, pobrecito, I want to do everything for you. It's okay. I got this. It's okay.
Was that Spanish? Let me see. What did he just say?
Decisions as they age. Next one is, teaching them independence rather than doing everything for them. Like a lot of times, a grandma or grandfather, a father or a mother, sometimes parents want to do everything for their kids. Oh, pobrecito, I want to do everything for you. It's okay. I got this. It's okay. I got that for you. It's okay. It's okay. No, it's allowing these kids to have to figure out their problems. Like, let's just say they're going through something, and one of my kids will come up to me, and there's a bully situation going on. I would say, so, Dylan, what do you think about what happened that day? You were there. I think you should have done this. Okay, what do you think? Yeah, but here's what was going on. How do you think you guys could have solved that together? We would have been able to do it this way. Okay, can you guys do it, or do you need my help? No, Daddy, let us do it first. Let us do it first. We got it, Daddy. Let us do it first. Let us do it first. We got this, Daddy. I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it. Let us do it first. You're teaching an element of independence, because long term, you and I got 18 years to teach these kids to be 18 independent. When they leave you one day, if you don't teach them independent, they're going to be having a very hard time in this life, because this place is not the friendliest place today, especially today. They have to learn how to be independent, be strong at the same time, and know how to make the right decisions and avoid the wrong decisions. God knows they're going to make some wrong decisions. You got to give them a little bit of leeway. But the more you allow them to make the decisions, eventually their decision-making machine will get better.
Yeah, this is something that I kind of do to a fault. I've had many opportunities to kind of be somewhat of a mentor figure, right? And this is, to, people, boys like below 10 years old and stuff like that. And this is something that I like, literally, for example, I recall one experience where this was loading up of a shredding machine. And it was kind of like a right way and a wrong way to do it. And he wasn't going to get hurt or anything. And the machine was not going to get damaged if you do it the wrong way. You just have to kind of open it up and then unclog it, right? And I kind of saw him doing it in a particular way. And I didn't say anything, right? And I watched him kind of fail at it. And then, and then I showed him how to unclog it. And he kind of asked me, like, well, why didn't you just show me from the beginning, right? I just kind of, he didn't really understand my explanation. And the whole point was not for me to understand my explanation. The whole point was for him to fail at it, okay? And what are your thoughts on this independence thing? Because I find other experiences, like, the bully thing that was mentioned, rather than, oh, we're going to the school tomorrow and we're going to talk to, and, oh, we're going to go to the parents next door and talk about their kid and going to give them a piece of my mind and that kind of stuff.
You mean like that on that episode of Thunder Thoughts, when we were taking a look at that woman that showed up at the wrong house with her kid?
Yeah. Ready to throw down. That kind of stuff. Like, rather than do that.
Freaking hilarious.
And it makes sense that Mama Bear would lean on that end of things. I tend to lean more on there's really not. I'm not going to jump in the middle of this, other than to give you a certain, number one, to listen, right? Because it's very, very important, right? That people are able to sound their ideas out to a sounding board that they respect more than just their peer group at home, at school or something, right? So that's number one. And then number two, to give them a certain type of insight, and wisdom on the issue, right? like I remember even giving a Jesus talk, this and then this, and then here is like the different levels in terms of like forgiveness, right? In terms of like, because it's a turning the other cheek thing is not a simple thing. You get what I'm saying, right? So like when to do that, when not to do that, the perspectives of these different types of things, as opposed to just jumping in. I'm going to go solve your problem for you, or I'm going to try to baby you or say this or that. Oh, this is wrong. That was just like, no, it's going to be stoic about it. And again, that whole idea of being at peace. It's like, okay, I'm calm about this stuff, and I'm telling you that, hey, this stuff happens. That I've dealt with stuff like this before, and I am calm. And okay, now so they're also calm, and they're telling you the stuff, and you're giving them pieces of wisdom and stuff like that. And as opposed to just jumping in, what are your thoughts about teaching them independence in general?
Yeah, so this is something I struggle with this a little bit. Adult supervision, if you could get rid of the spammer for us, we appreciate that. Or BK from the Rockies, anybody that's a mod, thank you. Oh, I did it. So anyhow, what was I saying?
You struggle with the independence thing, or giving them independence?
I kind of struggle with that a little bit with my son. And my wife, honestly, she's a little bit more proactive with that than I am. So sometimes I'll be trying to do stuff for him, and she's like, "Well, he should be doing that. Why don't you have him do that? You need to stop doing that stuff for him." So I find myself doing things, and I think the reason parents sometimes do that is because maybe in some respects they're not really ready for them to be able to do that. They want to still be able to do that. Like it's a connection point to the kid, Now, so in some ways, I think, and this is stuff like making food for him, like there's a bunch of stuff that he could do. Like he could probably get his own cereal, but I get the cereal for him, or stuff like that. And part of that is there's like a ritual associated with it where we eat breakfast together, pretty much eat every morning. So there's a ritual thing. And so part of that ritual is me getting him something to eat, and, but a lot of that stuff he could just do himself at this point, but with other kinds of things, I am trying to get him to, okay, you need to do this yourself. You need to be trustworthy. I need to be able to depend that if I say you do this and don't get into stuff, then, yeah. But yeah, my son is 9, by the way.
This one on the screen, which we'll probably end on, or we might not even get into. This is my this is one of my is it what would you call it? Is it Holy Grail or whatever? Like, this one is huge for me. Okay, part of it is me growing up and just remembering, being what is the word? Is it precocious child they call it? And so like I was very I was aware of what was going on a long time ago, and the just because thing was the worst thing that my parents could do in terms of their credibility, right? It did not help them at all. And I'm not saying, like, there's things that I knew that, oh yeah, you don't be bad, like I'm not gonna be I was not a bad kid. Let me rephrase that. It was not a badly behaved kid that was just gonna give the parents trouble or act like I didn't know what it. I did my share of dirt and all that kind of stuff, right? More than my fair share of dirt. But I wasn't questioning why I shouldn't do those things. I was questioning other types of things, like, shall we say, things that are more on the realm of tradition, now, of which the African African parenting is kind of filled with, or African society is filled with that kind of stuff. And there are reasons for these things, right? Or you could just, the reasons for the traditions and things like that. Not even, let's say customs, even like customs. Oh, you don't do that with your left hand, or you come in here, or you do this, or you do 10,000 different things like that. And they will never tell you exactly why. It's like, well, if it's so important that I do it, it's like I'm not pushing back, okay? I'm not saying I don't want to do it. I'm not just being stubborn, but if it's so important that I do this thing, I want some kind of understanding as to what's going on here, okay? And I just think that the parents didn't either that they don't see the need to explain, or they just kind of do this kind of broad strokes, every kid is a dumb kid type stuff, right? No one needs to. But for me, it was really important, both for me and for them, in terms of, again, their credibility. That's my entry point into this. But overall, it's about authority. What do I mean by that? And this is specifically about the man and the son. What is the source of your authority? Okay. Now, there's several answers to that. If you have a strong religion, then you can talk about, well, there's God, and then there's the man, and then there's the woman, and then there's the child, that kind of a thing, right? Your order of protection, if you will, right? Or, in past societies, there's God, and then there's the king, and all that kind of stuff. So that could be like a kind of a hierarchy of authority. However, you're not going to live in that space all the time, right? You're also going to be doing practical, pragmatic things with your son. And for me, it is always important to equate power with responsibility in that regard. And this also dovetails with what you were talking about in terms of, having your kid, take on more and more responsibility as they go along. So I had power over you. I had power over your diaper and your whatever when you were a child, because I had responsibility over it, because you couldn't do it. And I always make this spiel all the time, so I'm sure you've heard this 1,000 times, Dr. Thunder, in terms of the idea of you giving the child more responsibility so that they have more power over something, and then using it as an example as you go on through life. Like, hey, now that you can brush your teeth, I don't bother you about that stuff anymore. Or you choose how you brush your teeth. Now that you can do X, you can dress, this is not my responsibility anymore. Such that it's not about me lording over you, it's about me having responsibility. So I have massive responsibilities, such as paying the bills and driving the car, and that's why I get to make the rules. So on a practical, pragmatic sense, okay, beyond the other sense that I mentioned, on a practical, pragmatic sense, almost like on an economic sense, for a child like me, let me at least qualify it that way, for at least a child like me, I would have loved to know, like, exactly that, oh, this is what it's about. The more I learn to do for myself, the more I get the power. And Dad is not just out there hoarding power because he wants to hoard power. He's actually trying to give me more and more power by teaching me more and more responsibility. Like, I don't want to be having this power over you. Okay, if you go out there and you become this super child genius adult all of a sudden that that's holding down a job at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and you're paying the whole bills, you're like, great, right? If you take on the responsibility, you get the power. The source of my power is responsibility in this regard. And I think because it's a nice, smooth continuum, because they're going to be getting more and more responsibility. And they're going to see that as they get responsibility over that particular aspect of their life, they now get power over that. Hence, you're not just this crazy tyrant that is there to tell them what to do because you said so. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it is very important to limit the because I said so. And of course it depends on the kid, because sometimes kids can just be asking questions just to be belligerent or something, you know. And so knowing the difference between that and a kid that actually is actually inquisitive, you know. So my son does a combination of things. He does the I'm going to ask why all the time for anything. No, you're not allowed to do that. Why? Okay. So I don't really take that as a real question.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a difference between that and him asking me like some sort of question, questioning the nature of something. And then I'll actually answer those questions, even if it has to do with a parenting choice I'm making. You know, sometimes he just doesn't understand why it is that I'm saying, no, I don't want you doing that. You know, and so for instance, like, you know, we've got these Google Home things all around the house, and he knows how to do it, right? So he knows how to play music and stuff like this, and every once in a while something will start playing that was not intended, and I'll tell it to stop real fast, and I'll tell him, I don't want you to listen to that. I don't want you to listen to Kendrick Lamar. You know, something came up, Kendrick Lamar. I was like, no, you're 9. You don't need to listen to Kendrick Lamar. Right? And he says, well, why? Why is that? Now, that was actually a real question. So I answered the question. I said, well, it's, you know, the subject matters too mature. I just don't want you to listen to him. And he understands that the reason for that is there could be, you know, as he calls them, and as we refer to them as bad words, you know, there can be that kind of content in the, you know, in there. There could be other topics, you know. He knows he's not supposed to be just getting on YouTube. Right. So, and we have that discussion. Well, why can't I just get on there? This thing is for kids. I said, but there's a lot of stuff on there that's not for kids. You know? So answering the question, if it's really a question, you know, I think is important. But because I said so, I don't even know that I've ever said that to him. I'm not sure that that's something that I've said. I may have said it once or twice. It's possible that I've said it once or twice, but I don't even think that that's like a thing that I say to him. You know, I might say, do what I told you to do. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not qualifying it. You know, I'm not answering his question, you know, the why aspect of the question by saying, because I said so. I'm just telling him, if you get an answer or not, you still have to do what I'm telling you. You know, that kind of
yes,
that kind of thing.
Yeah. And that goes to the point that this gentleman is making here on the screen, talking about not always in the moment, though. And yes, the that whole explanation of responsibility, that's not a in the moment thing, right? That's and as I said, it should be a continuing conversation of what how now you're passing responsibility and therefore power over, and it's, as again, I started from the diaper all the way to graduation or whatever, right? It's going to be stepwise, stage by stage, and an ongoing conversation about that. So maybe I'll play what he has to say about this because I said so deal. And let's see here.
Because I said so, very rarely, meaning use that as something in your pocket to use once in a while. Because I said so every day. The other day I went to a church, and this one lady's next to me, and her son is not listening to her. He's like, you know what? I'm just going to go give him a whooping because he's going to listen to me. And she just went and bam, gave her a whooping. The son cried and all that. Because I said so. Because I said so. I've said because I said so. But I use that card very rarely, and I keep it here. So you can use it anytime as a parent. It's your card. You own it. You can say because I said so. But there are alternatives to because I said so. I was one time talking to a gentleman who talked about Reagan. And I don't know who this person was that I interviewed. It could have been a Larry Arnn, but he explained Reagan as the great explainer. He said the reason why American voters liked Reagan because he explained things so well. Sometimes as parents, we don't explain enough. We don't say, here's what I want you to do. Go do it. No, here's what I want you to do. Here's why. If you don't add the why, you're a dictator. You don't want to be a dictator all the time. I understand sometimes as a family, as a parent, you have to put your foot down and make the decision and call the shots and move with it. But try to become a better explainer to your kids, where you're teaching them how to reason by you reasoning with them. Eventually, it'll create a better relationship with them. Choose.
So something else came to mind. Well, while you were talking about making parenting choices, just want to kind of highlight that there, that because they're gray areas, right? And I think that, you know, and obviously the older they get, the more you can let them in on the gray areas, right? There are gray areas where one parent could go left, another parent goes right, right? And you tell them, I'm going right, as a choice. But these are the basis, right? Given X, Y, Z, one could go left or right, and I'm choosing to go right, right? But when you just say, I'm going right, without any kind of explanation of the pathways, the possible pathways, so there's a set of conditions, set of background conditions that then, you know, and a set of outcomes that are being sought after, and possible pathways one can take, and I'm just saying there are two here, left or right, and then I'm choosing right. Okay, that's a good thing for the child to know. It's like, yes, he could have gone, dad could have gone left, but he's choosing right. And yes, I see that, you know, right kind of jives with many other aspects of whether it's personality or parenting or other teachings that he's been given before. So I get it. This is why he's going right. And this obviously teaches also the critical thinking and all blah, 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 blah. But one thing that I think is very important is that kind of human connection. What do I mean by that? You're not God, okay? There's a lot of people who act like they weren't just born yesterday. It's like, practically speaking, okay, I was just born yesterday, and here comes this kid born today. I don't know what the hell is going on, right? Now, from the point of view of the kid and in certain types of practical, objective ways, yes, we're very different. But when it comes really down to it, like, dude, I just popped in here, bro. And you just popped in here. That's what I mean. Like, when I say human to human connection, I'm talking about a consciousness to consciousness connection, whereby they're recognizing you as another consciousness that is there, that is not a special thing. Now, that's important for me. I don't know how does that sound to you, Dr. Thunder? I'm sure it's not going to be equally important for everybody in terms of saying, okay, well, let's not act like we're God. Let's not act like we have some kind of special insight into the universe. It's like, dude, I popped in here. Hey, there you go too. You popped in here. Hey, I don't, here's how I'm rolling. I got these responsibilities. That's why I have this power. I have these particular set of outcomes that I want. So I'm choosing to go left, blah, blah, blah. I have a subjective consciousness as well. This is how I manage it. Yes, I too feel a little bad when X, Y, and Z happens. Here's how I manage it. As opposed to this kind of weird idea where I'm supposed to have fallen from the sky or something. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think there's some wisdom in actually appearing to be human, because when you inevitably make a mistake, it won't be such a letdown. Yeah, so I regardless as to what you do, when your kid is a kid, they're going to see you as a godlike figure, at least momentarily. So I think it is important to, as soon as you can, and they understand, to communicate things in a way that suggests that you're still trying to figure this thing out, that you're in the process of figuring it out, just like they are. You're just a little bit further down the road. But regardless as to who's figuring what out, you still got to do what I say.
Yeah, 100%. I have the vision that this will probably help the kid get out of that illusion that someday they're gonna become, quote unquote, an adult, right? That, quote unquote, now has figured it all out, you know? Because it's like, and again, this might be my own kind of little. I'm particularly obsessed in this particular way of like, waking up every morning and it's a brand new type of. In other words, everything is fresh. You know, I'm sounding like some kind of new age person now, but no, I'm a very structured person that blah 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 blah. But from the point of view of my consciousness, I don't like my consciousness to be kind of clouded with BS, because I notice that's the same thing that I notice that's why people, for example, it takes, you know, people go and they do a psychedelic drug in order to clear their consciousness and to once again realize, oh my God, I'm alive. Oh my God, like how profound the connectedness of everything, that kind of crap, right? I just want to be that way all the time. That's my own, let's say, my own private little, I don't know the right word. It could be religiosity or whatever it is, but that is my private little thing that I like to do. And completely contrary to that is this kind of a notion that there's this thing called a kid that doesn't know that whose consciousness is completely messed up, and then you're going to become an adult and your consciousness is going to be, and again, I'm using the word consciousness precisely. It's not personality, it's not skills, it's not none of that. I'm talking about your consciousness, and that somehow the consciousness is going to be transcend somehow at some point. It's like, no, bro, you're still going to just be a human being on your deathbed, like still like, this is a trip, right? This is it, and hopefully a good trip, right? Hence, going back to the whole point of, you know, being at peace, being happy, being at one with yourself and everything else in a quite real and practical way, as opposed to the, you know, I'm one. You know, we heard the one about the Buddhist and the hot dog seller. Yeah, it goes, what did the Buddhist monk tell the hot dog seller? Make me one with everything. You know. Anyways. But that idea of, look, like there is no kind of look, this is not something that, you know, the kid might never get what I'm trying to transmit here. Okay, I'm going into existential territory now, right? But I think it's important that, you know, people don't act as though their consciousness has become something, some kind of. It's like, dude, like adults, a lot of adults are way more screwed up than kids. You know, they're way more delusional, way more like, come on, man. We see these people, right? Again, not from a skills perspective or any of that kind of crap perspective. Obviously, they're way more ahead than the kid, but this kind of human being, open your eyes, encounter the universe type stuff. They have no freaking clue. Okay, so I want to share that sense of wonder, and like, yes, I am here too, opening my eyes every day, tripping out at the greatness of it all, and I'm sharing that with you, as opposed to me being some kind of other entity with a different kind of consciousness. Because I again, my understanding is this different kind of consciousness. But the only thing that can happen to it is to screw it up. In other words, you open your eyes and you're at that feeling of awe and all that kind of stuff, which is what you should have. And everything else that you try to do to deviate from that just tends to screw it up. And again, I'm not talking about psychology or skills or whatever. I'm talking about your encounter with the universe, with the world, with being, with God, if you will, right? And because that just is what it is, and everything else kind of would stray you away from it. And to act as though you are, you're now more of a refined being from a consciousness perspective than than you were, or than you should, blah blah blah, is I think is a foolhardy. But none of this is going to be, shall we say, directly communicated. That's why I emphasized the whole idea of you being at peace with yourself, you mastering yourself, you being stoic, blah blah blah, and all that kind of stuff. And it will then transmit through in how they perceive you, but also in the words that you choose to say and the ways in which you choose to say it. And because I said so is the direct opposite of everything I just said.
Yeah.
Shout out to. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Say what you're gonna say.
No, there's a lot of comments here from Mr. Spain Man. Right? I just wanted to read them. Yeah, it's talking about battling the YouTube thing as well with his son, and it says I've told this to my son in so many words. I'm your father, and it's my job to guide you into functional adulthood, but I'm not here to lord over you. Okay, that's a good one. But yeah, I know more than you, so you have to listen to me. Okay. That's fair enough, because it's not like they don't have context for that. Like they go to classrooms and they listen to the teacher, right? Why? Because the teacher has to run the classroom, right? They're not like surprised that the teacher gets to make the rules in the classroom that they're running, or that the person at the gas station gets to make the rules about the gas station that they're running, right? So it's not like kids will push back and they'll do their stubborn thing, but it's not like they don't have context for why. Again, from a practical sense, in the pragmatic world type way, you have to make decisions because you're running something. It's not even that deep, right? It's not profound at all. He also says, my mom spent almost my whole adult life reflecting on her mothering and would often apologize for things she did, like not letting me switch from violin to sax. Okay, Dr. Thunder, maybe you can give him a therapy session on that one.
Oh,
yeah,
wrong with that.
That's. Those oh my God, violin. You can.
No, it's not. It's not
sexy.
Not bad. It's not bad. No. It's not bad that you started on violin, but saxophone is the superior instrument.
It's the superior.
I'm trolling.
But she didn't need to, because I understood that she was just another woman. World. Okay, I don't know. Well, any closing thoughts on this here, and perhaps I'll just kind of give my usual type of emphasis on some of the things. Yeah. Now,
I think that the I think there's some good. He made some really good points. I'm in agreement with all of the points that he made. By the way, I mean, there's I think what we did was provide a little more nuance and depth and sort of personalize some of the stuff that he was saying. I thought in particular the point about that whole sort of making memories thing and not actually recognizing what the real memories are when we're even engaging in that sort of mindless banter, that idea, embracing that sort of, everybody, we need to take lots of pictures when we're doing all this stuff, even though you're like posing people, you're not really capturing what the actual thing was, so that's interesting. I'm curious as to what his point is going to be here for this watch the right movie with your kids. I can imagine what it might be. I have been when Moses was still pretty young, we watched like Rocky, like the whole the Rocky series, pretty much. He was too young to really understand, but he really likes Rocky, So, and my son is left-handed, so there's that whole southpaw, thing.
Mhm.
So that was that's good.
Why is it called Southpaw in particular? Why?
Yeah. So southpaw. So right-hander would be a northpaw. You think about it's always the default is right-handed, right? Most people are right-handed,
Gotcha.
and so so that's basically.
So default is right hand, and default tends to also be north in terms of people always orienting themselves towards north.
Right.
In a strange way. I wonder why. Because I guess north is up when we look at and gravity. Gravity is the one that ends up having to it all goes down to gravity. Gravity, blah blah blah, up down, and therefore look at the map, up, blah blah. Okay, makes sense. Yeah, so I really did like the one-on-one aspect of what he said. The one-on-one aspect, there's competition and teamwork, which again, the competition serves to emphasize the need for high standards, drive, recognition, hierarchy, motivation, and all that kind of stuff. Losing gracefully, is a good thing to have. And we're in a world where, especially women, and even now more so now even the boys with all this kind of everybody gets trophy stuff. But women more so are in this place where they don't really know how to lose, where everyone's a 10, right? There's no rank ordering anymore. And it doesn't lead to anybody's happiness and doesn't lead to anyone wanting to be around you. And also on that competition thing, the child at some point needs to be weaned from their goalpost shifting tendencies, which again, many women have not been. I hate to keep on bringing it back away, but anyways, goalpost shifting tendencies. Changing the rules of the game. If you're gonna usher them into adulthood, you're gonna need
Yeah,
to.
it's not just right. It's not just men. I'm sorry. It's not just women. With that
Mhm.
and the competition, it's also the men that they raise. Right.
Indeed.
Because the men are necessary. I mean, if you don't have a guy around, it's not a guarantee that the kid will be well adjusted, but there's a much better chance that he will.
What you got on Thunder's thoughts tomorrow?
I'm still debating on this, but I think I might be doing another episode of not episode, I'm sorry, like a part 3 of here's why my son will never go to public school. I have I've got an interview loaded up, but then I also Tucker Carlson, who has been pretty critical of a lot of the a lot of the transgender politics. There's a nice sort of bite-size length. It's like one of his sort of monologues where he kind of devoted to that topic, which I think is very punchy. So it's possible that may be the topic. I'm not 100% sure. I'll firm that up probably tomorrow morning sometime. I've got a little bit of time in the morning to make a decision. And but yeah, it's going to be a good show. And all of that. I did a birthday live stream on Monday. Which, in the evening, it was a late thing, and I had a couple folks drop through. The lead attorney came through to say happy birthday. So did let's see here, I think Kosher Clinician dropped through and said happy birthday. Black Ram 313 came through, said happy birthday. Little Big Nate came through and said happy birthday. It was an open panel. That was on this past Monday, but that's in the members only area now, because it was an Ask Me Anything show, and so we kind of talked about some different kinds of stuff. I mean, there was some questions about, you know, some of my regrets and maybe how I, see myself in the future and some things like that, which were pretty interesting. But like I said, it's in the members only area now. So you got to become a member if you want to see that.
Indeed, indeed. Shout out to Bob again for the super chat. This song that got stuck in my head lately. It's like early 2000s when the South started started kind of becoming big in hip hop. It's a silly song, but I don't know why. I think when you were talking about ice creams, right? It's do your chain hang low, do it wobble to the flow. Does it shine in the light? Is it platinum? Is it gold? It's like do your chain hang low. Oh man, they're so silly.
That's what we need. We need more of that. That's what we need. We need more.
Can you throw it over your shoulder if you're hot or if you're cold?
Yeah. Do your chain hang low? That's probably
do your chain hang low. These are the questions, Dr. Thunder. You know, I mean, that's what we.
You know what, man? We probably would have had a couple hundred live viewers in here. That's funny.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're out. Make sure you check out Dr. Thunder tomorrow. Okay, continuing this conversation about the private school situation and whatnot. But we are out until next time on Getting Ish Done. Okay, next Wednesday. And check out Case Closed. It'll be on Dr. Thunder's channel. We're not sure what topic is going to be, but always nice. And by the way, you came in for 2 minutes and ran away in the last one, but I'm sure you had things to do. But
man, that was a crazy day. I had church service, and I had to run straight to a gig, big, in the concert hall and stuff, and then I ran from there to private party at somebody's house, and then and played for about an hour there, and then finally got home. And on the drive between the concert hall performance and the private party, I hopped on the live stream for a few minutes, and that was the extent of it last time. But no worries, it'll be on my channel this time, and of course I won't run away.
Word them up. Yeah, it was a good one. MOT came through, and he was in law enforcement, military law enforcement, and certain other things. So he had kind of deep knowledge on what exactly the workings of law enforcement are and the things that could be done to change certain things, as opposed to the typical quote unquote talking points where politicians just blame each other and stuff like that. He kind of said a few things that could be done and things that go against certain people who are incentivized otherwise. They're incentivized by money, incentivized by entrenched power, and blah, blah, blah. The cops don't want to get in trouble. They want to have immunity and stuff like that. Some simple things that could be done to address the institutions. The single motherism, that's a different topic altogether. But from an institutional point of view, what could be done? But yes. It's a Spain man. I hang in my white tee, slang in my white tee, all up in the club spitting. Yeah, peace.
the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What a pity. Tomorrow never certain. What dwells behind the curtain? The face of evil smirking with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.